he's basically like, you're gonna like it. And it's like, you don't get to decide that. Whatever she feels about the experience is whatever she feels about the experience, but you don't get to decide it for her. And that's the thing that he did not clock that. Even in the very end,
I've had a relationship like that. It's not a relationship that's wise or prudent for her to get into at this stage of her evolution. It just seems like a little bit like an echo of what she's experienced in the past. Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're back again this week for another Bachelorette recap. Today we're recapping episode 4 of Jenn's season of The Bachelorette. For those of you who don't know us, we're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. If you're into this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. You can also listen to us on podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As always, feel free to be sharing your thoughts in the comments below as you're watching. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. We always love hearing your thoughts. So if you're listening on podcasts, shoot us a DM on Instagram as you listen. Get cozy, have a cup of tea, and let's get into it.
Okay, so we are in week 4 of Jenn's season. We are now in Auckland, New Zealand, which is so fun. I feel like she's having like such a fun little like bop around in the Australia area. It's such a good, like, she's got such good locations for her season. I'm so happy for her. So we had 2 one-on-one dates and a group date this week. We had a one-on-one with Sam M, a one-on-one with Devin, and then a big old group date in the middle. Let's start off with Sam M because I think a lot of us probably have a lot of thoughts about what happened in this scene. So Sam M and Jenn went to the top of, I think, the Sky Tower, some very tall tower in Auckland. I should have been paying attention to what it was, but a very tall tower. They at first were just having like a little like dinner drinks type of thing going on, and what happened was like someone came, they sent some waiter to go tell them like, actually you're gonna go to the top of the building and you can either just like walk along the edge and look at the views, or you can jump off of it. And Jenn was immediately nervous. Jenn was like, ooh, I'm like afraid of heights. I don't know that I want to do this. And Sam just looks right at the waiter and goes, oh, we're jumping. And Jenn was like, wait, like, let's talk about it first. And he was like, nope, we're jumping. And we see them get into this little tiff about it. Or not really, it wasn't even really a tiff. It was just really him kind of just making the decision on her behalf. And she even in her, she was like kind of narrating over the scene later, I guess with the producer, in an interview later. But she even was like, it felt pretty bad. It felt like he was talking over with me, not listening to me, not gauging how I was actually feeling about the situation. They go up to the top of the tower and he is continuing to push her to jump. We hear him saying in his in the moment interviews of like, I want her to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and if I have to push her off, I will. And like, it was a little bit alarming to hear what a discrepancy there was between their perceptions of the situation and how much he was not gauging how seriously scared she was in that situation. I'm sure you have thoughts on this, Julie. I was just like, oh my word, this is... And I think even Jenn was like, absolutely not, this is not flying. I think she was pretty disturbed by the interaction with Sam, but by the end, it was like, finally she had to like start like actually like crying and shutting down, and then Sam was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll give you a hug and comfort you. But it like really took a lot before he finally came around to understanding. And then eventually she ends up jumping off the thing and they kind of make up and he gets a rose. But man, that scene, it really kind of gave you quite a window into what kind of dynamic they could have in a relationship, at least in my opinion. What did you think of it, Julie?
It wasn't a good dynamic because, I mean, even as you were outlining it, it just seems like a horror movie just come to life on a date. Everything he did was absolutely not what you want to experience. If you're scared, if you're wanting to make a connection, they obviously like each other. Jenn wants to please him in certain ways, and he's pushing her to have experiences that she's not comfortable with. I get where he's coming from. He kind of threw out this one-liner of, one day she's gonna regret she didn't jump out of the Sky Tower, and she might have really wanted the experience. I get where he's coming from, but she gets to decide if she wants to have that experience or not. She gets to be the one that lives with that regret, and I have air quotes for anyone listening on podcast. She gets to decide what she wants to do. He has to respect her boundary and not push her. Jenn did like the experience of jumping out, but there were ways to have gotten her there without pushing her to the point where she had to cry. And I do consider it a giant red flag that your partner won't listen to you until you actually have to physically shut down and cry. I am exhibiting really strong distress. You're not listening to my words. You're not listening to me turning away. You're not reading the room. She said that several times of him continuing to push her. She was really uncomfortable. He didn't see it. So she was like, okay, this is kind of my final straw, which is crying. And then even after the crying and he hugged her and comforted her, it was almost this positive signaling for her. Like, I felt like she rebounded quite easily from that instead of staying in that discomfort. I've had a relationship like that. It's not a relationship that's wise or prudent for her to get into at this stage of her evolution. It just seems like a little bit like an echo of what she's experienced in the past.
I'm so with you on everything. I hated watching how much he was not only not reading her body language and her emotions, but even when she was directly like stating them to him. She was directly saying, listen to me, I am actually uncomfortable. I'm actually afraid. You need to listen. I don't like this. I don't like what you're doing. And he would just kind of like laugh at her and then continue like talking to like the instructor, like the jump instructor. He was like, she can do whatever she wants. I'm going to jump. And it was like, what is happening? And then he would be like, why don't you give me a kiss over here? It's like, what's going on? No. Like, she's like having this actual like distressing experience, and you are like completely sidestepping and minimizing and ignoring her emotions. And it was just like such a bizarre scene to watch. And you know, this whole thing of like wanting her to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, you're right, you said it's like a one-liner, it's a catchphrase. It is the whole thing about like, oh, I want you to look back and have no regrets. These are catchphrases. Like, it is not on you to decide what someone else needs. Like, you can value that. Maybe you value putting yourself in scary situations, but that is not an objective truth, right? People can value whatever they want to value. And if she doesn't value adrenaline, she doesn't value being in scary situations, that doesn't mean anything. People can value whatever they want to value. Conquering fears, it's a catchphrase, right? I think we pass it around as if it is an inherent or objective value, but it's not. People are allowed to want to choose to tend to their nervous systems. They want to, if they choose to take care of themselves, prioritize feeling stable and regulated rather than chasing highs and facing fears, people are allowed to do that. People can value whatever they want to value. And what I was seeing from Sam is him just applying his values and forcing his values onto her. And that's the part of it that I was like, what is going on here? It's fine if he really loves whatever, risk-taking and whatever that is, and I think he said, like, adrenaline is what makes me feel the most high. Great, you do that. That's not on you to decide that she needs to do that too, right? And the fact that he was speaking for her, making decisions for her, deciding for himself, like, this is what she needs, that's where the problem is, right? It's she can decide what she needs. She can decide what she values. It is never on you to decide that someone else needs to be uncomfortable and push their boundaries. You never get to decide when someone else has to change their boundaries. Only they get to decide that. And the fact that he was trying to kind of make her push her boundaries, that to me is where the red flag comes in. You never get to decide somebody else's boundaries. Never.
You said so many good things about the way that Sam M was a case study in everything you don't do on a date when you're trying to build like intimacy and trust. When you're looking to build a connection to somebody and you want to become a safe person so they feel safe to explore, to push themselves, you don't do it by it kind of reminds me of the parenting where you just like throw your kid in the pool and hope they learn how to like swim. That's one approach. They can definitely learn how to swim, or you can, build up their skills and build up their confidence and like really help them feel comfortable in the water, and they can have a really pleasurable experience versus what he did. If I was in an era of my life when I was trying to find my voice and feel really empowered to not only show who I was, but show the worst sides of myself, the sides of myself that isn't a down girl that's going to jump out the side of a building because that's what people do for memories. Like, that's such a specific persona that maybe does not represent Jenn, especially when it comes to a really specific fear that she was already tackling by, you know, she was like, okay, I can maybe do the walk. I don't know about the jump. She did the walk and then the jump. And I feel like those experiences were tainted a little bit by, well, not even a little bit, that's giving him grace. It was tainted by his aggression and him not reading the room. Something I was a little bit concerned about was just how quickly she shifted when he, I don't know, like, I felt like she was looking for an emotional connection. He gave her a little bit more than she was used to. And then they started making out, and then she was saying, oh my God, I feel like I finally found this thing with Sam M that I was looking for. It was hard to see her land in that place when I think her body was quite intelligent with the way that it was picking up, maybe this guy is not for me if he's making me cry.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, she probably in that moment when she was on the tower was like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling so unsafe. I need to be taken care of. And like the only person available to take care of her was Sam. I mean, I don't know, maybe the producer, someone take care of this girl, but the only person,
therapist,
the person that she was looking for care from was Sam. And I think like this is, to your point, like a reenactment of, you know, an insecure attachment system, right? It's a reenactment, right? She's like desperately looking for, you know, comfort and security from somebody who is not giving it to her. And in fact, it's because they're not giving it to her. That's why she wants it from him specifically. And I mean, it's tragic to see it. But then as soon as he does give her this little drop, it's like a pebble. It's like nothing really, but like, he's like, okay, here's a hug, you big baby. Like, that's basically what he did, right? Like, you know.
Here, yeah.
Exactly. It was not even really comforting. He really did the bare minimum, like hugged a girl while she was crying. Wow. Applause. Like, it really wasn't anything. But she was like, I think she needed it so much that she took that and then went all the way into, okay, I guess we have a connection. Okay, you know what, he did eventually listen to me. And it's like, I think she needed to spend more time kind of thinking about what happened in this interaction, like what happened in this dynamic. And you're right, it was like on the dinner date, he kind of opened up a little bit about, like, I guess he told us about like he had a previous engagement and he found out there was another man in that woman's life. I don't know. For some reason, it wasn't hitting for me. Something about it wasn't. I didn't really see the emotion there. I didn't really see any real connection to that experience for him. Something about it just didn't land right. And just the fact that he had an experience and then talked about it does not mean they have an emotional connection. Like, and so I don't know why Jenn made that leap that, oh, we are connecting. She opened up about her story too. She told him about, like, you know, some stuff from her past as well. But like, again, just opening up is not, that doesn't mean that you're actually connecting. It just means that you're talking about something that is maybe top of mind. And this has been, Jenn has been talking to every man in front of her. You know, she's been talking to all of these guys about her past. So I don't really feel anything about the fact that it came out in her conversation with Sam. So I don't know. All of it felt very, like, not service level, but it didn't feel like any real strides were made in the emotional department for these two. And so I'm with you. I was kind of surprised that Jenn went along with it and kind of spun this narrative, but I guess it kind of makes sense because she's so desperately looking for validation from this man, and any like little semblance of it, I think she's latching onto it and turning it into, okay, yeah, there is something here. Even though I think from any third party, like, looking in, you can see that there's really, this is a very tenuous connection with not much to it.
Something that you said about how he was sharing something emotional, but it wasn't actually bridging something emotional with Jenn, the way that they were truly being able to touch vulnerability, that's so true. And that feels like that's been their entire connection. They're speaking about things that matter to them, but they're not really reflecting on how they can make it work for a relationship with each other. There's something that doesn't have a lot of depth. And it might be because, you know, her and Sam might be more physical. I think that they are people that are quite bold in how they're looking for relationships. He speaks a lot about ferocious love, and I think he's taking that to me, and I'm going to push her. I'm going to go for something that's loud and big and fierce, you know, all of the synonyms for something that is kind of like larger than life. There's something about the way that I just feel like he didn't take, after the whole walking, you know, jumping incident, he didn't really reflect on, I really want to show up as a partner where I can really listen to you. I'm glad that you had that experience, but I don't like the way that I went about it. I want to talk to you about how I'm going to show up for you. There's something missing with the way that they're connecting with each other, and I totally get where Jen's coming from. She wants it to work with Sam M so badly. I do think she's the most physically attracted to him than anybody in the house. I think that she feels something with him that maybe she hasn't quite felt with the other guys yet. So she's looking for anything to just affirm, I'm on the right track. This is a person that is bringing me on the path that I really want to be on as a healed person. But he's not giving her enough. I think if anything, it's breadcrumbs. I think he's a more elevated version of what she's experienced in the past, but that doesn't mean that he is the right person for her to be with. And I think that kind of speaks to the emotional immaturity he also displays. Him and Jenn in this kind of relationship together, I just think that it's not enough of a progression for her. You know, like, I think everybody can agree. Like, watching that date, I don't know if anybody was like, wow, I really want my partner to treat me that way. I really want my person to push me the way that Sam M pushed me. Literally, he would have pushed me off the building. Yeah.
I know. And, you know, here's the thing. It's like, to your point, it's like he actually got to the end of the day. He didn't reflect on his behavior at all, to your point, because he was like, I'm proud of her. She jumped. So, like, I think he thinks at the end of the day he was right. I keep returning to conversations about consent, because that's really what this is, right? It's a boundary that she had that he pushed. And he's basically like, you're going to like it. And it's like, you don't get to decide that. Whatever she feels about the experience is whatever she feels about the experience, but you don't get to decide it for her. And that's the thing, that he did not clock that. Even in the very end, he still, I think the way he seemed to walk away from it was, I'm glad that I made her do it. And it's like, ugh. If that's the takeaway, then is he going to continue to behave this way? Is he going to continue to talk about this experience? Be like, remember, you didn't want to do it, but then I made you do it, and I was right, so you should just go along with what I said. Is that what this is going to turn into? Like, that's not a dynamic that you would want to continue, but she didn't really nip it in the bud. He didn't show any signs of understanding how bad it was for her. So it, to me, I worry if this becomes a pattern in their relationship, what that would turn into. And the other thing that really stuck out to me too was, in addition to Sam really not listening to her or tending to her feelings at all, we also saw how Jenn handles when she is uncomfortable with something that her partner is doing. When they were sitting at that table and he was speaking for her to the waiter, and she was clearly upset, like, immediately, but she kind of was like, like, laughing about it. Like, she was kind of like playing, like, because he was laughing, so she was trying to, like, still be chill and cool and kind of like laugh it off a little bit. Like, she was kind of like, she wasn't directly confronting it, at least initially. Eventually she, like, shuts down because she was so overwhelmed by how afraid she was and how unsafe she felt and how much she felt like her partner wasn't taking care of her. But, like, it was like that was the dynamic, or that was her response to the situation. It was to laugh, play along, kind of like go along with it, while, like, kind of quietly being like, okay, no, but really, this hurt my feelings. But, like, she wasn't really being very assertive about it until finally she shuts down up on the platform, and she's just like turning her body, like, she's just like, her body is like shutting down because she's like freaking out and not sure what to do. And that makes me concerned, because I bet that's kind of the only way that she could handle these moments in her past relationships. I would guess that this is like something that she learned from other relationships where she has said she has felt unsafe being her worst self. It's a hard, I think she used that word, but
she
on
uses
her bad
those
days,
words.
she said something like that. like on her bad days, she felt like she was not accepted. And so I would guess that this is a behavior that she learned, that like when she's upset, she has to kind of like still mold her feelings to be appetizing to her partner, like, oh wait, but this is upsetting me, like doing a lot of that, which is so sad to see. And it's like sad to see that she's kind of continuing to do that with Sam, and he's not picking up on it at all. And you know, the truth is, we actually have seen her kind of do this. I hadn't really recognized that this is what it was, but we've kind of seen her do this in other situations. She kind of did this in week 1 or 2 with Devin. Like there was this, when Devin and Aaron were like fighting and like pulling her a bunch, and Devin was like, oh, well, like with people like me, I'm like really loud and nobody really likes me. And she was kind of like, are you not getting along with the boys? And she kind of like did it in a way that was like a little playful, but it made me wonder, this scene made me wonder if maybe she was actually like not very happy with the way that he was like in conflict with Aaron in that whatever episode that was. She also did it a different time with somebody else. I can't remember. Oh, with the ex. When the ex shows up at the end of the episode and he's like, whatever he says, we'll talk about the ex later. But like very similar. She was like, Matthew, why didn't you tell me this before? And she's like doing it in this like very playful way when clearly she's actually upset. This was something I was starting to observe about Jenn, that like I don't know that she very clearly communicates her frustrations as much as she like kind of like bends it a little bit to be more like appetizing, or like not, she doesn't want to seem like she's like uncool, like losing her chill, or like I don't know, being needy or crazy or whatever. Like I feel like she's like putting her own emotions like in a box a little bit, which she kind of said that her partners used to do to her. So I don't know.
I think that she's aware that she has these unconscious mechanisms from her past that makes her want to appear more appetizing to people. I think about how she talked a little bit about how, you know, like her dad was not in her life and was not present, and she just had multiple conversations with him before she finally had a really big conversation about what it really meant to her, that he wasn't showing up for her in a way that she really needed, and he just left her. That is a very huge wound. That might be something that she's afraid of. She might be afraid, if I really speak my truth, people will abandon me, people will leave me, people won't like me, I am not worthy. And those were themes throughout the episode that she had spoken about, of like, who said she was worthy? Was it Devin or Sam? Sam. Oh, maybe that's why she kind of accepted it, because he was saying, you are worthy, you do deserve it. And these affirmations were things that perhaps Jenn is really unconditionally working on integrating within herself. So right now she's having it reflected with her partner, she's having it reflected through her experiences, and that's why this validation is so much greater. That's why it really matters to have these like external signals, because it tells her, okay, like I can believe this about myself because somebody else believes this about me. That's kind of like the first step before you take it on for yourself.
There's so much going on here, but at the end of the day, like Jenn was giving, to me, obvious no signals from the very start, from when they were sitting down at that table and the waiter came. She was giving very obvious no signals that he was actively ignoring. And she shouldn't have to continually push him to take her no seriously, which is what happened.
Exactly.
And it's also unfortunate that like Jenn feels the need to like soften her nose. And also, we know why that, like, she has directly explained to us why she behaves this way. Like, we know that this is coming from a dynamic where she was rejected for having fears and emotions and bad days, right? What we're seeing here is, like, this is the product of, like, so many different experiences that has led to this behavior, and it's like the worst type of person for her to end up in a relationship with, is like the type of person who will completely ignore your no, your signals, no matter, from subtle to direct, he will ignore it all. And like at the end, he'll still say, I was right. Even though you had to cry and melt down and like had a whole like this emotional like experience of feeling like you weren't being cared for and feeling like, you know, your needs didn't matter.
Sam M would know his behavior is not okay if she didn't validate it with giving him a rose. Like, I really wish she would just be like, I felt really uncomfortable. I have this connection with you, and yet you crossed a non-negotiable boundary, which is not respecting my voice and listening to what I said. I did it. I was uncomfortable with it. I'm in this really delicate, fragile place of my healing. I don't think this relationship works. It's not a relationship that I need in this current moment. I can't give you a rose and I can't have you go to next week. The following week,
wish.
I know, I wish, I pray, because I thought
Hopefully it's going to come. I'm hoping that
Right.
is eventually going to be what is going to come from her, and she'll get to that point.
Because like you brought up, I forgot last week that he did that really disgusting, sitting on her, being like, are you gonna be my girlfriend? And she was like, no. I mean, I would have been like, nope. That would have been the second absolute no. Like, first was getting in a fight with other people in the house. Second was getting on top of me and not getting off of me. Third is telling me to jump off a building that I did not want to jump off of. If you just hear any of those three situations objectively, no. Just I wouldn't do it.
You want a partner who, like, my God, you don't even have to fucking say anything. You just, like, they just know you well enough to know, like, hey, this is something that, like, I know would make you uncomfortable. Are you okay? This actually reminded me of the Jenn and Marcus conversation, which we'll get into, but, like, Jenn saw Marcus get hurt. He didn't make a big stink about it. He didn't tell anyone about it. He didn't talk about it in any interviews, but she saw it happen, and she brought it up to him later, and she said, hey, I saw that you got hurt. Are you okay? Look what happened. And he was like, oh, no, I'm okay. Everything's fine. And she was like, just so you know, you don't need to, like, always put on this front and pretend like everything is okay. Like, you can tell me. Mm-hmm. Like, I also want to be there for you for the small things. And, like, that's the thing about it. It's like you want to have a partner who will make you feel safe to have even, like, your, like, goofiest, pettiest emotions. Like, you want to feel safe, like, you can have those emotions without having to hide them, or without like fearing, like, do I have to yell and scream for people to hear this emotion? Like, how do I package this emotion so somebody will still accept me even if I have this emotion? Like, all of this, like, gymnastics around our feelings. You just want to have someone that you can just feel what you feel, and, like, they know you and can, like, understand the feelings that are going to come up for you because they understand your background, your story, the things that trigger you, the things that could be uncomfortable for you. And you don't even need to have this whole negotiation about whether your feelings are valid. They just take your feelings at face value and, like, will automatically go into, I will support you. If you are having this feeling, I'm here for you. And if you're not, cool, that's cool too. Like, but if you're having this feeling, like, I just want you to know it's, like, okay to say it. And that Jenn and Marcus thing was, like, very, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but, like, in comparison to what's going on with Sam, where it's like Jenn could not have that feeling, like, at all. It was not taken seriously, not respected. And, like, he was like, I will do anything to make this feeling, like, not be present in this situation. I will completely ignore this. And, like, that's the opposite of what you want. I love it when someone walks up to me and they're like if I'm, like, in, like, a social situation clearly, like, awkward or something, they're like, do you want to, like, take a walk or something? And I'm like, you knew I was feeling bad. Yeah, let's take a walk. Let's get out of here. I'm scared. Like, when someone, like, lets me feel safe enough to have that emotion that I'm, like, trying so hard to, like, not show, it's like, it feels so good to have somebody, like, create that space for you to open up. And, like, that's the kind of partner that you want to be with. And that's obviously not Sam in this situation, in this context.
Guys, you know what me and Kelly think about Sam and Jenn? We have so much to say. What do you think about how Sam M pushed Jenn literally almost to, like, jump off the building? What do you think about Jenn continuing to keep Sam along? Do you feel like they're a good connection? Do you feel like she's going to cut him loose in the next episode? Let us know in the comments down below. And by the way, did we mention that we have an Instagram? Come find us on there. We're always posting quick takes, behind the scenes of filming, and after hour thoughts of the latest Bachelor Nation relationship news. It's super fun. We stay connected. You can always DM us. We hope to see you over there.
Okay, let's talk about the Jenn and Marcus situation. So we moved on after the Sam M date. There was a group date. It was like a rugby date, and a very typical two teams just beating each other up or something. It was, doesn't tend to be my favorite type of date. But there was also, like, a whole conflict with Sam N, who I really don't have that much, I really just don't have much to say about the whole Sam N situation. Like, I don't know. The man had a problem with him. He was, like, being very, like, puffing his chest out a lot, and then he tried to kiss Jenn and she sent him home. But I really don't have much to say about all that, to be honest. The only thing on the group date that really stuck out to me that was like very like of note was the conversation between Jenn and Marcus. So Jenn and Marcus, so what had happened was Marcus had gotten like, I guess, tackled at some point in the rugby game. I think he had gotten hit like earlier in the game, then he just kind of like kept playing, and Jenn had seen it happen, and then I guess she had found out that later he had gotten like checked up to make sure that his like shoulder was okay or something. And so in the evening portion of that group date, she pulled him aside and she was like, well, so I heard that you got hurt, like I saw that happen, and like I want to check in and see if you're okay. And it was funny, he was just kind of like, no, I'm okay. Like he kind of like brushed it off, and she was like, okay, well also like you don't have to like just tell me that it's okay. Like if you got hurt, like it's okay to like, you know, let me know, and like I want to be able to support you. And I loved how this conversation went, because he was like, yeah, I think I was like a little embarrassed that I got hurt so quickly, and like so like I just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And they kind of ended up talking about it a little more, and she kind of reflected back like some of their conversation from their one-on-one date, and she like brought up the fact that she knew that like, oh well, like with everything that he had experienced, like he had had these experiences of like feeling like, you know, just like really alone, and just that he had had this big trauma, and it was like very hard for him to appear weak because he had been like taught that he has to be strong all the time, and that's like the thing that, you know, has really shaped like who he is. And I just really appreciated seeing Jenn kind of take on this listening role. I think we had both been really critical of her in the way that she had handled her conversation with Marcus on their one-on-one date. It was kind of like he opened up about being hit by a freaking grenade. And she was like, there, it's okay, let's make out. Like she kind of like sidestepped their conversation, and like it just wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't feel like she did a good job taking care of him in that moment. And in this conversation, it was almost like she had like thought more about what he had opened up to her about, like after the date was over. It was kind of like I feel like maybe she had been listening, and it just like maybe took her time to like internalize and process it, but clearly she did, because she remembered this thing about him. She understood that he's not someone who's going to talk about when he's struggling. He's not going to open up about that. She understood that. And so she did exactly what I was kind of saying about the Sam M situation. She wasn't like, I'm going to wait for him to like break down before I start giving him care. I'm going to just start giving him care right now, and just like check in and see like, hey, just so you know, like if you do need anything, like I'm here, and like you don't need to like puff out your chest for me. Like I can just be there for you. You don't need to like appear tough in front of me. And I just loved to see her kind of like go there into that space of like, I can be this emotional rock for you, and like I can sense what's going on in you. And he even seemed pretty touched by it. He like teared up both in that conversation and later on when he gets the group date rose, he like tears up. It seemed like he was a little bit like, I'm not sure that I want to go, like he was a little bit like, I don't know that I could talk about this right now. Like in the moment interview, he was like, if I open up about anything, I will open up about everything. And so she was right too. That's the thing. It's like she was right about what actually he was holding it in. Like he was holding in this emotion that he didn't feel safe enough to open up about. I have a feeling it actually has to do with being on television more so than being on like anything with Jenn. I have a feeling he was just like, I can't open up. He was like, I can't do it. Like, you know, it's like, valid. I was like, oh, puppy dog. Like he just doesn't. And he even said it to her, which I also like this. He was like, I think I need a little space. Like, I don't know that I can like open up about this right now. But also like it clearly like kind of like touched him in this way. And I just really liked this conversation. And she was also like, she didn't force him to keep talking about it. She was like, okay, like, but just so you know, like, you can talk to me about things even if they're like silly. Like it doesn't have to be like a big thing. You can just, that's fine. Like we could talk about these things. And I just really liked, there was such a nuanced little conversation about how Marcus struggles with opening up with his emotions. So I just really liked it. I just thought it was just very sweet. So that was the first time this whole time I've been very whatever about Marcus and very whatever about their connection. But this was like a very sweet moment to me. I just enjoyed it a lot.
You're convincing me, because when I saw that, it was just such a nothing burger to me. being on reality TV, having to open up about things that are so deeply personal to who you are, to get to know somebody else, it just would be something that would be difficult for anybody, especially somebody as closed up and has gone through so many traumatic, difficult experiences that are it's unimaginable to like the general population. So I totally get where he's coming from. And you describing their interaction, I see a little bit more of the connection, because it literally just passed through my mind. Something about one of the reasons why I wasn't totally sure about Marcus and Jenn was his stoicism. I just don't know if that really like clicks into Jenn's engaging nature, like maybe what she's looking for in a partner. I don't know if I see Jenn being the person that's pulling something out of a partner as much as I see maybe someone doing that from her, at least in this initial phase of dating that she's in.
Yeah.
So I was just, one thing that I was thinking about, and I'm taking it back to her childhood, I'm taking it back to parental dynamics, is that she's kind of used to like wanting to win over people, or she's used to like wanting to be a certain way. Appetizing was a really good word. To be perceived by people in a really positive manner, to want to have someone be present to her, to have somebody stay, to want to get to know her, to think about her birthday, which was a really sad comment that she made, that her dad literally didn't know her birthday. So she's used to not really being seen or tended to or focused on, or this is the person I want, this is the one that I'm going for. So that, to me, I was like, I don't know if I like Marcus for her, because it did seem a little bit like it wouldn't be the repeat of a pattern, because not everything is a pattern that you're looking to break, but it's almost like a posturing that I don't know if I want Jenn to be in.
You're right. It's so different from her dynamics with like most men, but I think that's kind of what I like about it. Like, in a way, it's like she's not like chasing validation from him. She's not like he's not needing to like, you know, he of course is like so caring. Like when they did that skydiving date, she didn't even feel unsafe at all, because he was so doting on her. He was like taking such good care of her that she like, I mean, she was scared of course, but she like did it. It was like not like a whole big thing that she was like so afraid, you know, like she just felt so comforted by him. So I do think that he is doting on her and like takes care of her, but he's also not like, you know, needing to, like she's not a child. Like she needs to source that self-worth from herself. And like I think that like he's like the perfect kind of partner. He's like steady and there, and like she can do that inner work with him, but it's not like she's relying on him to be like, you're worthy, baby. You're worthy. The way Sam M was. Oh, gross.
Yeah. Gross.
Like it's like ugh. Like it's, and so in a way I was kind of like, I actually appreciated, this was the first time I've ever seen, to your point, Jenn have emotional intelligence with a guy. It was like a Joey moment. She was like, let's talk about that. I was like, okay, Jenn, since when do you open up space for like active listening and blah blah blah? Like I've never seen her do that before, but she did it with Marcus. So I was just kind of like, I kind of appreciated, like you mentioned, like she's not the type of person to pull like that out of someone, but she actually did it with Marcus, which I was surprised by. I was like, I've never seen her behave this way with somebody else. And like, to me, I was just kind of like, oh, it's almost like this is like the Jenn, this is who Jenn could be in like a healthy relationship. She can be this person who is like this like confident, like emotional rock who like can kind of is aware of her feelings and another person's feelings and like can be there. Like I was almost like I got this little taste of like what Jenn's like highest self might look like. And like I was like, ooh, like I like this. I like that Marcus is in a way like kind of creating that space for Jenn to take up that role, as opposed to always needing to be in the role of like receiving validation from men, right? It's like I kind of appreciated that. And it's not that Marcus is like reserved from, it's not that he's unaffectionate with her, it's just that he's not like, you know, he also is dealing with his own bullshit. He's also trying to figure out how to open up, and like so he's like kind of going through almost like a similar journey to her of like, how do you feel like safe in a relationship? How do you like build a healthy relationship where we can like just like lean on each other and feel okay? And like I kind of liked that Marcus was like you know, like he was like struggling with his own like vulnerability issues, and she was like, I can help with that. Like I'm here? Like, I was like, that's great. Not that I'm saying, I'm kind of with you that I think ultimately, I don't know, I think his personality isn't quite big enough for like her taste. I think she likes a bigger personality, so I kind of think ultimately I don't actually see the attraction level being there, and I think it's more from her than it is from him. I think that she just likes a more like Devin or Sam M style person with a big old personality. But I don't know, I just like this dynamic. I just kind of felt like I got a taste of like what a healthy relationship could look like for Jenn, and I was like, this would be nice.
I definitely see where you're coming from now, because when I was thinking about Marcus, I almost wrote him off completely because he just seems so antithetical to this person that I see her being with, a little bit fratty almost. Like I see her being with somebody that's a president of a frat, you know, or somebody that is organizing trivia night at their house. Like there's just this really specific personality that she's going for. I don't see Marcus doing that, but I see Marcus, you're right, he's teasing out these different sides of who she is. And this is why it's good, guys, to date outliers, because you never know if you could let's tuck in a dating lesson, because when you date somebody that's a little bit different than your usual type, you get to amplify all of these other qualities of yourself that maybe you don't get to have represented in a typical relationship when you're used to being this really playful, bantery, charismatic, fun person. You don't have to lean into these other sides of yourself that somebody like Marcus would actually really value. So from that, I think there's a lot of positivity to be gleaned from their growing connection.
My criticism of their relationship after their one-on-one date was like, I was like, ugh, I want Marcus to be with someone who could help him like open up and process these really complicated experiences that he's had and like learn to, you know, feel more comfortable with being vulnerable and like showing his, you know, emotions. And I was like, oh my god, Jenn could never be that person for Marcus. Like this is such a bad match. That was my original thought about them. But after the scene I was like, you know what, I was being judgy. Maybe that's not true. Maybe she can be that person for him. And like I also just loved even like the nuance of his like emotional experience in that scene. He was like, clearly like she was right. She sensed something that he was like trying to bottle something up, and he also wasn't ready to open up. He was like, I actually can't do this. I need space. He was like, I can't. He's like, if I talk about this, I will cry. And I have that, trust, I have that all the time. I'm like, someone like is like, asks you like, you know, how are you doing? And it's like, literally, if I try to answer this question, I will start crying. Like, don't ask me how I am. Like, just don't ask me because I will just start crying. And like, I appreciated that Marcus even was like, kind of like emotionally aware enough to understand that like, there is actually all of this emotion down there that he has, and he just like doesn't quite feel ready yet to like go there and open it all up, but he knows about it. He's not doing the thing that I think a lot of men who are like a little bit emotionally stunted do, which is like, I don't have feelings, I don't have any emotions, there are no emotions here, I'm strong, I'm tough. Like, he's not doing that actually, even though he is aware. I mean, he is doing it in the sense that he wants to appear strong, and that's why he's not opening up, but he knows that he's doing that. He's like, he has this like meta awareness of his own like emotional pattern, and to me I was just like, oh, okay, Marcus, like, all right, you're getting it, like you understand that you are doing this thing, that you are bottling up your emotions, but you know that there are emotions there, and like you know that there's something there that like, and you know that that's why you are keeping the doors so shut, because you know that once you crack it open, it's all going to come flowing out. And he just needs to be in a space where he feels like ready to like go to that extent with somebody. And like, I liked that he wasn't like, okay, I'm going to just like opening it all up for you on this group date, Jenn. He was like, you know what, like, this isn't the moment. Like, I want to go there and I'm feeling touched, but like, I can't do it right now.
That is so representative of where we want to see Jenn go. And we want to see her tap into these sides of herself. And I do think because Marcus is such a departure from her usual type, she will get to explore those aspects. So yeah, there could be more with the both of them. I do think she's so intrigued by him. He's going to like last. And he's gonna be around for a little bit. Yeah, I can tell he's one of the stronger connections in the house with her.
Well, let us know down below what you all think about Marcus and Jenn. Did you like their interaction? What do you think about their connection thus far? Can you see it? Are you seeing it? Or are you still a question mark like Julie is? Julie's like, what the hell are you talking about? Let's talk about Devin real quick. I'm curious what you thought about the Devin date. I was more warmed by it.
Yeah, the Devin date, I mean, I do think the way that they represented and displayed the Maori culture was it was so informative. It was so respectful. I think that Devin was the perfect person for her in the way that he was really able to take in their customs, the way that he had his conversations with Jenn, and they had all of this compatibility of their childhood upbringing. They have maybe the most authentic connection out of anyone in the house. I also think that he's on par with where she's at emotionally, and he's really engaging in a way where he shares something about himself and he asks her something about herself and he pulls it out of her. So there's something about what he's doing that none of the other guys are doing. It's almost like Devin knows Jen's a little bit out of his league, and I kind of like that. He's a little bit like, oof, like I need to shoot for this. I need to appreciate this. I see that this is a person that's totally a catch, and not just who she is, but everything about who she is. I really want to get to know. It doesn't seem like Devin is falling for the idea of her as much as he's falling for her, period. Which I can't say for a lot of men in the house.
Yes, I am totally with you on Devin. I love the Maori date. I thought it was so beautiful. Honestly, this was like kind of one of my favorite Bachelor dates in a very long time, because how fun is it to just hang out with people and like learn about their culture and just talk about values. I'm like, that's so fun. I would love to go to like truly any community, any culture, and just like hang out and like learn about I'm like, that sounds so fun. Look at that. I was like, that was awesome. I thought it was just like, it seemed so like cool, and like everyone was like really sharing like really cool and interesting stories about their own past, and they were talking about like, okay, well, these are the values in your culture, what are the values in my culture, like how would that look like in a family. I was like, damn, this is like the best Bachelor date ever, as opposed to like we're gonna jump off of a building, like, yeah, okay, like, you know, like this was like actually like meaningful. And then I loved their conversation, like when they got to the dinner portion, like you're right, there was this like really nice little back and forth between Jenn and Devin as they were like opening up about their past, and it was like a mutual opening up. They were both like going there, asking each other questions. It just felt like very balanced and genuine. I liked that we learned more about Devin's past and why he is the way that he is. I'm still reserving like a little bit of judgment, because I still like want to see Devin move through a conflict in a positive and healthy way. I keep just seeing him interacting with all these men, and like it's so charged. Like even that scene between him and Sam M when they were like waiting while everyone else was on the group date, and they were like kind of like bickering with each other. I was just still like, what is happening? Like I want to see how Devin deals with conflict like with Jenn. I would be really curious to see like what that is like. I also appreciated that he had like a little bit of accountability around his mom, right? He wasn't just like, I love my mom. He was like, I love my mom and I was a fucking terror. He was like, I like treated her poorly. I was like doing these like things, saying all this stuff that like really hurt her, and I recognized that was like not cool of me to do. And so there was like a little moment of like, oh, okay. So he does like, he can acknowledge like when he has behaved poorly or in a not so kind way, and like kind of like acknowledge that. So I did appreciate seeing that from Devin. That's a good sign in my book. So I do think, like you said, I think they might be the strongest connection of anyone. So right now I think it's Devin's game to lose, to be honest. So
totally. And I think that Devin, how he reacts to Jen's ex joining the show, because it seems like a lot of men have a problem with it. So, you know, towards the end of the episode, Jesse has this very weird, he talks directly to the camera. There's all of these cuts of the ex showing up, Jenn oblivious, Grant getting dressed. It was like a heist movie. I was like, what is happening right now?
So funny. I was like, what is going on? It was so funny.
He was like, production was not involved. I was like, okay, production somehow, like, he shows up, knows where to go, knows how to meet Jenn, knows it's right before the rose ceremony. Of course, some of this is orchestrated behind the scenes. Maybe he did purchase his own plane ticket. Maybe he did want to reach out to Jenn. I don't know. Just so much of it felt a little bit like, okay, some of it's manufactured. But, you know, so basically it was an ex that she dated 3 years ago. They dated for a few months. They said I love you to each other. Things did not work out. He came on the show to win her back. He realized after she left that he really wants to be with her. So he reached out to production. He is arriving to join her season. Jenn and him saw each other, and Jenn made it very clear that he was not one of her more toxic exes, that he was a person that was, that she just had a really okay relationship with. It was fine, but it just ended up not really working out. Did she say why they didn't work out, or did she just kind of say that it was a few years ago? That's why
I didn't catch it. I think, did she say that they only had dated for a few months? Is that what she said?
3 years ago for a few months.
I just seems a little random.
It's random. It's random. You know, when she saw him again and she was kind of doing what you were saying, she was like, Matthew.
Yeah, right? She was like, what are you doing here, Matthew?
I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
I know. It's like, why are you being so nice to him?
I know. Like, why are you coming here? Like, come on, you're on TV. All of this stuff. I would just think that he's totally he's wanting to get me back, not because of me, but because of what's now around me, because he knows he could have lost. So I don't know, like, we're going to see in the next episode how she decides to play things out, but we do see that a lot of the men, namely Austin, they're not very happy with the ex joining the show. And I thought that this would be such a good opportunity for us to talk about what does it mean if an ex wants to get back with you after all of this time. In the Jenn context in particular, I feel like it's a beige flag. I think there's something to be said about how Jenn said, we literally had a conversation with each other before I left. You didn't say anything to this level. He said, I did. It just wasn't as grand of a gesture as it was now. So a little bit of things didn't work out in the past. You could have worked things out. It didn't work out. Why do you want to try again? For me personally, I just really believe that unless you've really, really, really changed, it's really hard to get back with an ex, because it's so much of, you know, you can slip back into old habits and behaviors of being with each other. They just saw each other before her show started, so it just makes it really hard for me to believe that she or he has changed the level that they need to be in so they could be in a relationship with each other. They had all of this like shorthand conversation where he was like, I didn't go to the weddings. She was like, you didn't go to the weddings in Colombia?
You're right.
And I was
like they really like were knowing stuff about each other.
Exactly. I was like, how recent was this? Were they still maybe dating each other but not in a relationship before she went on the show? I don't know. I kind of think it's a mistake for him to rejoin. I think it doesn't make any sense, because if she really wanted to be with him, she would have been with him. And it just felt like a grand gesture that fell flat for me.
I'm entertained. It's very entertaining. I'm like, this is great.
It was very entertaining. Yeah.
I'm living. Like, it's great. I was like, the Jesse talking to the camera like it's a crime scene. I'm like, what's happening?
That was amazing. Yeah.
It was so dramatic.
Best editing. Yeah.
I'm with you. You cannot convince me that he is actually serious about pursuing a relationship with her. Like, he had all the chances apparently to do that prior to this and never did. So you can't convince me that he is actually serious about this. And to be honest, to me, it's just kind of, I would spring for the word selfish. Like, it's like selfish of him to like, it's like you're coming in here, you're throwing this like confusion at her when she's like thriving. She's trying to move on and enjoy her moment. And you're just bringing in this, like, I don't know, this like it's gonna like really mess with her journey and like mess with her how she's thinking about it all, because she even mentioned, she's like, I really like some of the guys in the house, but also like I've known Matthew a lot longer than them. I've been talking to those guys for 3 weeks, which is true. So it's like Matthew, who she's apparently known for years, he's breaking the conceit of the show, right? The conceit of the show, which is like you're getting to know these people like strangers, and you're all going through this process, and like, you know, we can talk about whether or not the process makes any sense, but there is a conceit here. There is a process that is, we are going to build a relationship. None of us know each other, and we're going to build a relationship over the course of these 2.5 months, and we are all mutually agreeing that like if we get to the end, we're down for an engagement. That's what's happening. But when you throw in a guy who was in a completely different type of relationship with Jenn that was like, you know, a normal, you know, we dated for a couple months, we got to know each other, we were dating casually, and then we have this long history together, we know each other's, he was like, she knows me better than anybody else in my life, I think is what he said. I was like, what? Like, you're just that really, because then, you know, of course she's going to try to compare in her head, like, all of this stuff that she's feeling with this guy, Matthew, versus, like, what she has so far with all of these men. Of course, if you compare those things, it's going to feel like Matthew, there's more weight there because you have the history there. Of course, it's going to feel like there's something kind of there. But then that doesn't, and I mean, to be honest, I don't think anyone should get engaged in this kind of process of 2.5 months. I don't think anyone should do that. However, that is what you've all agreed to doing. You've signed up to go through this process and that you are okay with getting engaged at the end of a 2.5 month like thing where you were like getting to know each other in this contrived way. So that there is a thing that you have kind of agreed to and signed up for, and then to throw this other type of relationship in that kind of like makes the whole conceit of that process like seem flimsier. I mean, it was always flimsy, but it's like calling into attention how flimsy it is. It's just going to make it harder for her to connect with any of those guys. So it's just that, to me, it's just like it's a selfish move on his part. I'm kind of hoping that she doesn't keep him. I'm kind of hoping that he just shows up to that cocktail party and she just like sends him home. But I guess we're going to see. I mean, I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed by a guy who dated girl for 3 months, 3 years ago, suddenly shows up and is like, I love you. I'm like, okay.
I agree. Yeah, and I mean, if anything, what he represents is an opportunity for her to really say goodbye to the past and for her to energetically close that door and to take control of her season, because the season is happening to her in some ways. There's like the men, Sam M is a really good example of this, where he is kind of happening to her, and then the ex is coming back. I have this past with you, let's see if we can get back together. How she responds to the ex and kind of kicking him out, that's my hope, will be her being like, okay, I'm taking control. This has been getting a little bit too much, like this ex coming back in, Sam coming. I'm just going to kick all of these guys out. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on my journey. That is what he potentially really represents. So for me, I'm just hoping that she just kicks him out next episode and she kicks out Sam M. And then the season is really going to take off.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hope that that's where this is going, that she's going to, I like the idea of this being an opportunity for her to really close the door on her past and like take control of her season. I really like that as a vision for what this could all be. Think about that guy, I mean, I guess we're going to find out more about him, but I was just, I feel like I know that type of person, and this is really just like judging at a very first impression, first glance, but like, it's like the kind of person who was just like always like squirmy and not wanting to offer commitment to you. Yeah. And then like all of a sudden when you're actually moving on, they like don't actually want to let you go, and it's like don't actually want to, it's like
hate it.
I mean, I don't know, I guess we're gonna find out more about their past, but that was like at least something that I was thinking about. It's just kind of like you can't have me and not have me. Like, if you're gonna have me, you have me, but you can't like kind of have me and like stop me from like going and moving on and finding a great relationship. Like, if you want me to be with you, then you gotta be with me, and like if you're not gonna be with me, I'm outie. And it's like I don't really like that she made the decision to be outie and to go off and like move on and date other people, and he was just kind of like, oh, actually no, I do want you. It's like, like you, like I would have if their relationship was going to work, you know, the man should have wanted to be with her already, you know, like, and I guess the argument is like, oh, he realized how much he cared about her because after he realized that she was going to get engaged, it all dawned on him. But like, I don't know. I just don't really buy it, to be honest. I just don't really buy it.
I know. I thought the same thing too. It was very juicy. The climax, it adds in this really fun element to what's happening on her season. And I was like, okay, use this opportunity, Jenn, to just say goodbye to him and move on, not accepting what this guy is offering you.
Okay, I would like to know down below what you all think about the ex showing up. I'm so curious. Like, is anyone into this? Into him? Can you see it? What do you all think about the ex who comes back into your life wanting to get back together with you, well, as soon as you're moving on? Like, what do you think about this dynamic? Can you see a universe where could work out? Were they dating before she got on the show? I'm confused. Like, what is this wedding thing? Like, that keeps coming back to me. I'm like, they were gonna go to these weddings together in Colombia. The two of them were gonna go together to Colombia and attend weddings. What was it? I don't know. If you've watched to this point in the video and you are not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe because we do this every single week. We are recapping every single episode of Jenn's season of The Bachelorette, and we do it for The Bachelor, we'll do it for The Golden Bachelorette, etc., etc. So subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and we will see you next week for week 5.